a very warm welcome to the mentoring series, and it's a great pleasure to introduce the whole series with Kirsten. Known Kirsten since a number of years. She's been involved in mentoring and mentoring programs since forever. Well, forever is 2000, so it's more than 20 years in that business. And she's an authority in what she's doing. She was also a founder of EMCC Denmark in 2007 and its first president. So that's another good thing. She calls herself a thought leader, author, and consultant specialized in the field of mentoring. She is, however, very astute and very knowledgeable about the whole area of coaching and mentoring, and in particular how you work with programs. So she's written books, articles, many articles, she's saying, and she's been working with businesses like Danfoss and Pharma, Leo Pharma, Philips, Novo Nordic, Visma, and she's even been plaguing us in Norway at the University of Oslo. And with Copenhagen Business School, she's running a big program down there, and she's also been engaged at the University of Brighton. So she has a very wide international background, and we're very pleased to have her. Now Lisbeth is also here. She will be on the screen on the 23rd, and on the 7th of December we will have Bob Garvey, who is an international authority as well, talking about what goes on across the world. So that is it. On the logistics side, as you can see, we're recording it. And that is because we will put the series into a separate area in case somebody is not able to attend all sessions. That would be a good place to just find some of the materials and also the handouts. We will make the handouts from this session, the slides, available afterwards. We'll send them out separately. And yeah, without further ado, I think, Kirsten, I leave the screen to you. You will have two breakout sessions, I understand, and a poll in between here. So we'll try to put you guys together in triads, 3 at a. So you just give me the hands there. There's 3 pieces. The presentation. I'm going to fill in with a couple of things in terms of an interview later, and then please put questions into the Q&A area, and we'll take them at the end. That's it, I think, Kirsten. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I will start by sharing my presentation here, and thank you very much for this very nice introduction. I've been looking forward to this session. It's a Nordic session. That's a very rare event for me. I work a lot either with Danish clients or with global clients. So thank you for inviting me for this series. My topic today is better practice in mentoring and mentoring programs. And I will do my best to set the stage for what is modern mentoring and what can we do to increase the impact of mentoring in an organizational context. In our company, we are working mainly in an organizational context, providing tools, design, advice, consulting, delivering full mentoring programs for anything from 5 pairs to 50 to 100 pairs of mentors and mentees at the same time. And we also train and accredit our clients to use our methodology. So today I will talk both about mentoring as the individual mentor-mentee relationship and mentoring as a corporate initiative. But before we get to that point, let's talk about what mentoring is and maybe what it isn't anymore. In a traditional and historical perspective, mentoring is a lot about the mentor having all the knowledge, giving the advice, protecting the mentees, providing solutions, giving recognition. And this kind of mentoring assumes that mentors have the solutions and mentees are receiving it from the mentors. There's a lot of value in this kind of mentoring, but there are also a lot of pitfalls. One of them is definitely that mentors clone themselves. And we do not want to make cloning factories out of mentoring, because the solutions from yesterday will definitely not help us become better, successful tomorrow and handle tomorrow's problems. So we need to think about mentoring in a different way. And modern mentoring is very much about a mutual collaborative learning process. It is a learning alliance between the mentor and the mentee, where both of them can learn, where both of them can grow, where both can achieve new insights. And when they share their knowledge, they are creating new knowledge about themselves, about their context, about their opportunities. And so there's a lot of added value when we think about mentoring as a mutual learning process. When we look at mentoring this way, there are many benefits for mentors as well as for mentees, or rather for mentees as well as for mentors. And we did a huge piece of research in Nordic companies back at the beginning of the year 2000 to 2003. And we found that these 7 areas of benefits that both mentors and mentees can achieve through a mentoring program. So there's a lot of personal development. There's definitely professional development. Personal development can be anything from self-management to stress management, self-understanding, defining my identity, moving in my career, finding out who I am in my next job. The professional development, of course, has a lot to do with my professional knowledge and skills, how I can become better at sales or accounting or business systems, whatever is my specialty. Knowledge sharing is, on the other hand, sharing knowledge about people and processes and career paths and whatever specific knowledge mentors and mentees have that would be relevant to share. Cultural understanding can be anything from understanding the corporate culture where the mentee is, to understanding the culture of the country, if we are mentors for international people coming into our country, to understanding the culture of a specific profession. So learning to navigate in the context where you are. Career development, I believe, is always a part of mentoring. Identifying career path, understanding your own strengths and talents, looking into your opportunities, finding out how to make yourself attractive to different career paths. So helping the mentees clarify their ambitions and move in their career. And networking is a very, very important part of mentoring. And in all the programs that we have been, mentors keep telling mentees that networking is absolutely vital to have a successful career. Don't expect people to know who you are and appreciate your performance. You need to promote yourself. So networking is definitely also a huge part of mentoring. You see in the illustration here that it also says active listening. Active listening, actually, we identified as a benefit when we did a statistical analysis of all the surveys we have done based on this model in mentoring programs, both in Scandinavia and across the world. And it turned out that active listening was a specific, unique benefit that both mentors and mentees gain from having that practice of doing learning conversation with each other. So there is a lot of benefit in mentoring for mentors as well as for mentees. We also need to think about mentoring not just as the outcome of mentoring, but also the learning process itself. And the learning process can focus on different elements and have different levels and different depths to it. So when we talk about different levels and kinds of learning, we talk about single loop learning. Single loop learning is about fine-tuning the knowledge we already have. So staying within the assumptions and framework of how the world works, of what we already know. So 2 + 2 is 4, 4 + 4 is 8, 8 + 8 is 16. We are fine-tuning and building on our understanding of ourselves and our world. This is something people do at school. This is something people do when they become better at their professions. And this is something we have all learned to do through our studying at university and school in general. However, we also talk about double loop learning. Double loop learning is out of the box thinking. It is really challenging our assumptions about what is right and wrong, about what is possible, about who I am, about what I can achieve, about how things should be done, how we solve specific issues. So, and double loop learning is really, really difficult to do on your own, because we have to shake ourselves out of the comfort zone of believing we already understand the world around us. So double loop learning is definitely one of the achievements we can have in mentoring when we frame it the right way, when we match mentors and mentees the right way, and when we communicate and train mentors and mentees to understand this is an opportunity. Additionally, we talk about transformative learning can be a result of mentoring. And transformative learning is any kind of learning that changes my perception of myself and my identity. And this is something that is needed when you are moving through significant transitions in your career. So, for example, coming from university into your first job in the workplace, moving from being an individual contributor to being a manager. These three kinds of learnings, as well as those we saw on the former slide, are all learnings that both mentors and mentees can achieve through mentoring. In most mentoring programs, we focus mainly on the mentee, but still, every mentoring program that we are involved in, we say it is a mutual learning process, and we frame it and support it and push and nudge mentors and mentees to make sure both are actually learning from this. And I know from also being both a mentor and mentee myself that there's so much learning in mentoring. Now, we are in a context here today where we are thinking about both mentoring and coaching. So the topic is mentoring. So before I start talking about what the difference between mentoring and coaching is, I'd actually like to send you into a short breakout where you have a discussion about the difference between mentoring and coaching. So we'll give you 10 minutes max, maybe a little bit shorter, because we have nice small groups. So shall we say 7 minutes, Paul?
Yeah, that's I think that would be good.
Super.
And please use the time also to get to know each other a little bit.
Yes. And we will let you know when you're coming back.
Yep.
Let's just hear from the groups. Lisbeth, would you tell us what you could agree on in your group?
Yes. I think we agreed on that mentoring and coaching is not that isolated in a way as maybe we thought earlier. In a way, we can, I feel in my experience that my clients, they want something more than just the traditional coaching. They want also sometimes some advice or just to discuss the topic with me. Yeah. So I feel that sometimes I can use more traditional coaching methodic and just use all questions, etc., and be the catalysator. Yes.
Yeah.
And yeah. And on the other side, sometimes as a mentor, I need to open the doors, maybe give access to a network, give some more advice. But the main thing is also to know when do you use the different sort of, wait, just a moment.
So when do you use the different sort of styles?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So we agreed on that one.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
What about Anna-Kari?
Yes, we came more or less on the same lines, I would say. Conrad, you fill me in if something is missing. But we also said that we felt that probably one can also do a mix of it depending on the situation, and very much similar to Lisbeth. We agree, I think, on that.
Yeah. And what about Erik, your group?
I think the main focus in coaching is to ask a lot of questions. And the mentoring the main focus there is to be more kind of advisor. I think that's main differences. And I'm working mostly as a coach, and I'm very aware about keeping the responsibility at the coachee and helping him to understand himself, his situation, and his challenges. And rarely I can give some advice, but often it comes like questions.
And that is a very good way of thinking coaching, that you can actually, through your questions, manipulate in a very nice way. I mean, manipulation is only negative if the agenda behind this is selfish from the person manipulating. Otherwise, manipulating simply means leading by hand. And that's what a coach is doing also with the questions.
Right.
Let me share with you something that may clarify why we also have these many different understandings of what coaching and mentoring is. Because if we go back to the founding principle of coaching, coaching is asking questions and putting up a mirror so the other person can see him or herself in a different perspective and gaining more insights about who I am and what I already know. So in a completely foundational way, coaching is not about giving advice or sharing knowledge. It's helping the coachee find their own knowledge within themselves. In a completely traditional way, a foundational, historical way of looking at mentoring, it is the mentor having the answers, the solutions, and giving them to the mentee, being the advisor and the wise old person. But both coaching and mentoring has evolved. In Denmark, we have a professor at University of Copenhagen called Reinhard Stelter. I have been working together with him for 20 years. He was also part of the first EMCC board of directors here in Denmark. And he has written a book called Third Generation Coaching. And I want to share with you how we can look at the evolution of coaching and the evolution of mentoring as two parallel evolutions going on. So when we started looking into coaching and mentoring, it was like 20 years ago, at least. It was in the 80s that the first mentoring was researched. So in the 80s, when we had what we call the industrial society, when we had stable, large companies who were living for many years and where the career path was stable and you weren't hired and fired and people would stay in their jobs for a long time, we could talk about a first generation of mentoring and coaching. As the context and society around us has evolved, we are now talking maybe about the knowledge-driven society or maybe even the digital society. There are many new words for the society we are in today, the VUCA society, where things are changing in unpredictable ways all the time. So the first generation of coaching was very much focused on fixing problems and fixing performance. The very first kind of mentoring was very much what we call the sage on the stage, the wise old man protecting and advising a younger talent. The second generation of coaching was much more solution focused, opportunity focused, looking for new ways to use your talents and your strength. And the second generation mentoring was more the guide on the side, the sage on the stage. Here it was actually important that everybody knows who my mentor is, because the status of my mentor also reflects on me. Whereas the guide on the side, almost anybody can be my mentor, because it's not the mentor necessarily having all the solutions, but I still assume the mentor has knowledge I don't have that the mentor can share with me, but it's on the side and I decide how I use it. Third generation coaching is the co-creating dialogue. It is where it's not just asking questions, but it is having a dialogue around values, around priorities, around ambitions, around talents, around opportunities, where you are going in many different directions, trying to make sense of where the coachee is and want to go. In mentoring, the third generation mentoring, we talk about the learning alliance, where it's the mutual learning, which is also a co-creating dialogue, where both mentor and mentee are ready for the relationship and know what is going to happen, understand the purpose and the tools and the framework we are within. So in this sense, we can actually also go into companies or to the individual and figure out what kind of coaching, mentoring are they expecting to have? What kind of coaching or mentoring do we believe is the right thing to bring into this relationship or this program? And what is it the organization behind it is looking for? So coaching and mentoring has actually really moved towards the same way of working within the relationship. So today, I would say the main difference between mentoring and coaching is a mentor needs context relevant experience. A mentor needs to have been there where the mentee is now. So the mentor can bring in that kind of knowledge also, and not just the methodology of coaching and the experiences from being a coach or whichever other background the coach is coming from. So having that context experience is really important. And I'll come back to talking about external mentors and internal mentors in our session here today. But what I do want to say here also is, when we look at the skills needed to be great mentors and coaches, the foundational skills as presented by EMCC are the same. When we train mentors, we also train using the same 8 category competence framework, because they are just as important for mentors as for coaches. It's a foundation for understanding your role. It's the foundation for aligning expectations, for building the relationship, for making sure you're moving towards some learning, some results, using having a great backpack of tools and methodology you can use, and also making sure you are evaluating. And of course, the commitment to your self-development as a coach or a mentor or a mentoring program manager, if that is your role. In my company and through my work with mentoring, I have developed what we call mentors' many roles. And I see these 10 roles as building on top of the EMCC framework, because these 10 roles are what makes a great mentor on top of the foundational skills. A great mentor can be a storyteller, telling stories from my own life and career, telling stories I've heard from other people's life and careers, and inspiring the mentee through the stories. A great mentor is also a discussion partner. And the mentor discussion partner's most important word is why. Why do you think this is your greatest strength that you should build on now? Why do you think this is the right next step in your career? Why do you think this is the right way to solve the conflict with your colleague? So challenging mentees who have very strong beliefs on what they should be doing, and making sure they have thought through the whole scenario of who they are in their context before they move in that direction. Mentors can be advisors. My advice to mentors is, do not start with that role, because if you start being the advisor, you become the old-fashioned cloning mentor, just pouring your knowledge into an empty head, and there are no empty heads out there. But with the power you have in your role as a mentor or a coach, if you give advice, they might take it on, even if they don't feel comfortable and maybe it's not the right for them. So you need to help them find their own way before you start sharing your advice. Mentors can be knowledge sharers, and that's different from advisor, because a knowledge sharer provides knowledge on people, processes, markets, jobs, without telling the mentee what to do, but giving them more knowledge to base their own decision on. Mentors can be coaches. And here I'm talking about the foundational skill of asking great questions that bring insight. So all the open questions and all the combinatory questions, so that you help mentees see different perspectives of what they are experiencing and the world they are in. Mentors can also be critics, and critic is not a negative word. Critic simply means giving constructive feedback, and criticism may be feedback that they're not getting from people around them because people around them are too shy to give them this feedback. So having that feedback from a neutral person whose only agenda is helping the mentee is extremely valuable and very much appreciated by mentees. Mentors can be networkers and door openers, and the networker is helping analyzing and strategizing around how the mentee can build their own network and what kind of network and allies they need to build to navigate in their career and gain information and influence. As a door opener, a mentor can actually introduce the mentee to somebody in their network, inside the company, outside the company, in an association where it could be good for them to be. So also based on the mentor not having all the knowledge in the world, you can open doors for them to other people with knowledge or people who would be good for their career to get to know. Mentors can be sponsors, and sponsorship is a very hot topic in mentoring, where mentors can do anything from guiding the mentees in their career to actually promoting mentees into jobs. And you can hear some of these roles will be more relevant for internal mentors. Some are more relevant for external mentors. But any mentor can be a friend. And the friend role means simply that you show sympathy and empathy and listen without pushing, because that's also needed sometimes. Now I would like to bring up a poll asking you, which 3 roles would you prioritize to develop more for yourself or for mentors in your organization, if that is relevant for you? But mainly, which 3 roles would you like to develop more to become better mentors? Let's see what comes up. Let's see. Yeah, there are some decisions to be made here. Okay, interesting. We have 5 answers. Maybe that's where we are. Network, RDP, critique, and friend. Okay, I think you can show the result. Yeah, here was the last one, right? So it's networker, it's critic, and then yes. Let's see the results for everybody.
You can see it now?
Yeah.
Can everybody see the result? Okay. Anyway, 4 of you have said networker. That is definitely the number 1. So networker is one role that you'd like to develop more. And after that comes the critic. And then there are a number of roles with 2 points. So why is networker one of the roles you would like to develop more? Who would like to add some comments on that?
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy. And some of you are muted.
Yeah.
But I can also do something else, because I can tell you that we have trained more than 10,000 mentors and mentees from around the world. And when we train them with these roles, we also ask them or we see which roles they choose the most in a training situation. There are two roles they choose more than any other role in the training situation. And those two roles are coach and discussion partner. Now, there's no doubt that both the coach and the discussion partner are very valuable roles. And I do believe that the coach role is chosen because it is a very popular role. It is a very well-known role. Very many people have trained to become mentor or to become coaches or train coaching skills at different levels. And it is a very valuable role. The discussion partner, I think people choose a lot because it is a role you really expect to see as part of the mentor role. And you do expect to be, as in Swedish you call it bollplank, somebody that you play ball with to figure out what should I do. When I see that people choose these two roles the most, my observation is that, or my reflection is that it may be that people will choose these two roles mostly in training, but that does not mean that they actually use these roles the most in real life. So what I will challenge you to do also is consider, when you are mentors and coaches, which roles are you actually using? Because when we train these roles, of course, the point is to become much more aware of what you're actually doing and what kind of effect you want to achieve in the mentee-coachee, and so that you are much more focused and clear in what is going to happen in the mentoring relationship. And we also train the mentees because we firmly believe that we get better output from mentoring when both mentors and mentees have the same methodology, the same understanding each other's roles, and mentees also can ask the mentor for a role. So maybe mentee, you would like to ask your mentor to share more knowledge or to give more critique or to open a door. And that also means that you as a mentee takes a bigger responsibility for the mentoring relationship and your own learning. So that is definitely something that increases the effect of mentoring and increase the quality of the mentoring relationships. However, we have now been focusing on the relationship between the mentor and the mentee, the individual pair. If we really want to increase the effect and impact of mentoring in organizations, we also need to have a look at the organizational context. So what can we do to increase the organizational impact of mentoring? Because if we do it just one mentor-mentee pair at a time, it will take a long time to see an organizational impact of what we are doing. So when we're working with mentoring, we also need to think about how to define mentoring on an organizational level. And here mentoring can definitely be a strategic tool in the organization, where we are developing the organization through the mentor-mentee collaboration in their pairs, and it can support the strategy, the vision, the goals, and the values of the organization. And I want to share with you some of the many reasons why we do mentoring in organizations. Organizations, companies, universities, private companies, public companies are really looking to make their talents more visible across the organization. They are looking to promote alternative career paths within the organization, to accelerate the learning and the change, to build a culture of learning, but also to work with diversity and bridge the gaps, generation gaps, gender gaps, cultural gaps, to foster innovative thinking and to enhance the value of their employer brand. So there are many strategic reasons for why organizations do mentoring programs. However, especially looking at the pipeline in the organization, the transition points of going from being an individual contributor to being a frontline leader, a mid-level leader, senior leader, to the C-level. These transition challenges, these transition points are excellent timings for both coaching and mentoring, but it's definitely here organizations are looking also for mentors who have been there themselves and know how it is, how to move from this one step to the next, because they are significant changes. They are transformative learning points in your career. If we look further into the return on investment of mentoring programs, we're definitely looking at retention and inclusion as hot topics today. There's a big fight for talent at organizations today again. I am absolutely amazed at how companies are fighting to have the best talent when they have open positions, both from internal and from external. So they really want to fill their leadership and talent pipelines to make sure they have people ready when there are open positions. And part of that is also to increase that mobility across business units, across countries, and having people think about careers not just as moving upwards, but also getting that experience moving sideways in the organization. And we need to develop these strategically important skills that you cannot just buy from outside. I know companies who are creating graduate programs integrated with mentoring programs for only 3 people, 3 graduates in a global company, 2-year programs with mentors, because their internal skills are so unique, specific, they must learn it through a graduate program, and they really want to do everything then to keep those 3 people in the organization after the graduate program, because people have a tendency to leave for greener grass everywhere else. So this is to ensure the future success of the company. And we need to fill those critical roles and have a lower turnover. And this is what we can achieve through mentoring. So here it just comes again. And of course, you need to consider what kind of results are your organizations and your clients looking to achieve. When we look at the highest level of leaders in an organization, they might feel it very lonely at the top. And if we think about having either an internal mentor or an external mentor, those who are at the top will need to have external mentors, executive mentors, or executive coaches, because they cannot find that neutral, knowledgeable person inside that they can share their knowledge with without compromising confidentiality inside the organization. So we do know from research, from people at IMD actually, that when we mentor the top level leaders, it has a huge impact. 71% of those having a mentor resulted in the mentee improving company performance through also having a mentor. 69% of those who had a mentor were making better decisions for their organizations. And 76% of them fulfilled their stakeholder expectations better as a result of having a mentor. So, and this is really research at the highest level that I really trust because it's IMD. So this is something that is true in the sense that you can make true research. So there's a lot of value of having mentoring at different levels in the organization. To make this happen, we need to think even more about how to put mentoring into a program context. And we do have different scenarios for creating mentoring programs at companies. We can make programs where all mentors and mentees come from the same organization. That is the most typical kind of program when we talk internal mentoring programs. We can also have mentoring programs where they come from mentees from inside and mentors come from outside. So you can, just like with hiring external coaches, you can find a number of mentors, individual mentors that you assess and invite into the company. We also have actually handpicked a lot of leaders here in Denmark that we have trained as mentors and provide them one at a time to companies and sometimes to mentoring programs. So they get mentors from many different companies into one program. We can also have that mentors come from inside and the mentees come from outside, because that is a kind of a reverse mentoring where external mentees are actually brought in to challenge mentors in their leadership positions about what they are learning and how they are being mentors and how they're being leaders inside. And it could also be that we actually do mentoring programs. I have a company, a law firm. They provide mentoring for law students. So they go to the universities and the law programs and say, we would like to be mentors for law students to also increase our employer brand and make our company more visible. And then we have what we call cross-mentoring programs, where all mentors and all mentees come from different organizations. It could be member associations, trade unions, students associations. So there are lots of different ways of making a design for a mentoring program. It all depends on the purpose and the context, what would be the right design for the mentoring program. But let's talk about what external mentors can do, what external mentors bring of value, because there's a lot of value from having external mentors. External mentors bring new perspective because you have different kind of experiences, broader perspectives, and more diversity. External mentors also bring more objective opinions because you're not part of that internal culture and all that politics at work, whatever we want to call it. So much more objective and much more clear view on what's happening inside the company. External mentors bring outside knowledge and outside experience, and also bring added confidentiality because you have no link to anybody else in that organization, so you could compromise that confidentiality. And there's less of a power issue because if you have an internal mentor, they will always be in some kind of a powerful position, even though they cannot directly influence the mentee in mentee's position. External mentors can also then challenge mentees' perception of themselves and their understanding and their opportunities to a higher degree than internal mentors. They can expand the frame of reference and open up for new interpretations of opportunities and conflicts and behaviors and values. They can definitely open doors to networks outside of the company, which could also be very valuable for a mentee. They can give feedback from an outside position, which is also opening the mentee's eyes in different ways. Provide new solutions and different kinds of advice than you would get if you were an internal mentor. And tell stories from lots of different contexts. So there is a lot of value in having external mentors. There are, however, also things external mentors cannot do. You cannot sponsor the mentee inside the mentee's organization, but you might accidentally sponsor them outside. And here you really need to be clarified with the organization on the ground rules for this. But I would also always say a mentor's first priority is supporting the mentee, no matter what will be the outcome of that. But you can not open the doors inside the organization or share stories from inside, or even advice on what is the correct thing to do inside the company. But you can definitely help the mentee find out and open doors on their own and find these solutions. So with internal mentors, there are some other organizational benefits because internal mentors are definitely ambassadors for the strategy and role models for the culture. They can also ensure that the mentees become integrated and become part of something bigger. So you increase the loyalty of the mentees to stay in the company. And of course, they facilitate internal knowledge, especially for skills which must be learned internally, which an external mentor probably cannot provide. So I would like to suggest another breakout where you have a discussion about the benefits and the dilemmas of external versus internal mentors. And I think, again, it's maybe 7-8 minutes, and then we hear a bit afterwards so we can manage our time well. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Let's see if here we have everybody. Okay. So
Göteborg.
I think I should continue, Paul, instead of debriefing because of the time.
Yep.
Yeah. So in this ending part of my presentation, I would like to say I'm just going to do it. In this ending part of my presentation, I would like to say some words about designing effective mentoring programs, because I think that's something that's relevant for all of us to understand, whether we are working as individuals or as program managers. We always need to have a clear purpose, and it links very well to the EMCC 8 categories of competencies, a clear purpose that links to the strategy of the organization. We need to understand how ready the organization is for mentoring and whether we have people who are individually ready for the mentoring. We need to understand the importance of stakeholders, how they can be barriers or supporters and ambassadors for what we're going to do. We need to have a strong and skilled program manager to be our connection internally in the organization and who can have the daily responsibility of the mentoring. We need to choose our format, the design. Is it virtual, physical? What should it include? Is there training of mentors and mentees? Are they coming from outside, from inside? And then we need to establish the sound processes of communication, selection, matching, and follow-up. We need to provide structure and tools, making sure that both mentors and mentees have the same methodology, and also, of course, evaluate the quality and the outcomes so we can keep improving on what we do, whether it's individual or it's program. But the program has the bigger impact. This is the model we use for designing mentoring programs, the 5-phase model. And we've been using this for many years as a checklist to make sure we go through all the important points in the decision phase and the preparation phase of a mentoring program. We recommend 8 to 12 meetings during a 12-month period. We recommend that there are some learning events during the program. They can have different length, different impact, but definitely upfront, making sure both mentors and mentees have the same training methodology and understand why they have been matched as they are. And then supporting the program during the year and evaluating and documenting the results. Some of the most common pitfalls are not having this clear purpose, which also means that participants may misunderstand the purpose. And so they become frustrated and conflicted and not really gaining from the program. If we don't have the key stakeholders engaged, they become barriers, and they actually become a barrier for mentees to participate in the program. If we have poor quality in selecting and matching, the pairs won't work, and it'll just kind of fade out. Program managers who cannot prioritize it or leave in the middle of the program, then everything falls apart. So it can be very vulnerable if you only have one program manager. Often mentor skills are assumed, so you don't train mentors. Mentors need to have the right skills, the right background, the right experience for the specific purpose of this program. And mentees need to understand why they're part of the program. Sometimes I meet mentees who say, I think I should have been a mentor. I really don't understand why I'm a mentee in this program, which is not very helpful either. And then, of course, some programs have a kickoff and then nothing else. Again, it fades out. So this is really important to be aware of. I would like to end my presentation by sharing with you these top 15 skills identified by the World Economic Forum as skills we need to develop from now till 2025. And at least all these skills that I have emphasized here are skills and competencies that mentees and mentors are training and developing and improving on through their mentoring relationship. So there is a lot of value in mentoring, whether we do it one-on-one or we do it in a program context. And I would really recommend that we help organizations become more professional in designing and running their mentoring programs for added benefits for both mentees, mentors, and the organizations. Those were the words from me. And now I give the word to Paul. And you are muted, I think.
I am muted, you know. If you give back my screen.
Yes.
Stop sharing. Thanks a lot for those. I mean, you really demonstrate why you're considered an expert. So I think that's great. Listen, I have a few questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
One is tied to one of the last slides there, where you put a lot of emphasis on structure. You say program manager, you say a leadership, it's tools. I know lots of mentoring programs that don't have that. Kind of a leading question. How much of a problem is it?
I would call it an opportunity.
Will they do that all, you know?
I would definitely call it an opportunity because there are many mentoring. I mean, no, let's start a different place. You don't know what you don't know. So a lot of mentoring programs are started with great intentions by people who are really passionate about creating learning and matching mentors and mentees and seeing a need for this in different contexts, anything from students to entrepreneurs to women in Africa to many, many different target groups. If you don't know what you don't know, of course, the first advice is to seek out more information. There is a lot of research on mentoring, actually much more research than on coaching. And the biggest part of the research on mentoring is actually done by academics, whereas I still believe most of the research on coaching is done by practitioners. So it's very interesting that there's this difference, but there is a lot of research and a lot we can learn from this research. And a lot of these mentoring programs do provide results, but I think if we add just a little bit more structure, a little bit more methodology, they would provide much more results. When we see internal company mentoring programs, there's a lot of assumptions that mentors know what to do without being trained at all. And there are many leaders who think they should know what mentoring is. And then they actually come and are a little bit performance anxiety because, oh, I'm a leader, I should know what to do. So I'm not going to tell anybody I'm uncertain about what to do. So when we bring in training, for example, with the 8 categories of skills from EMCC and the 10 mentor roles, their shoulders go down. They start enjoying themselves. And they start seeing that mentoring can be very tangible and very beneficial for themselves also. So I really, really recommend putting in more structure, more training, making sure that the framework in terms of how many meetings, what is the purpose, is completely clear. So mentors and mentees don't need to negotiate this among themselves.
On a more personal note, I mean, you've been in this for more than 20 years. What do you regret?
I actually don't think I have any regrets.
Oh my God.
And it depends on what, I mean, around mentoring, I have no regrets. I really love working with mentoring, and I wish I could just, I would like to be a missionary.
Okay.
Because I really am passionate about ensuring this learning and bringing out good tools and methodology and inspiration to people. So the more I can do that, the happier I am.
So is there anything that you would have done differently if I put the question that way? I mean, you've been building a business, and
yes.
and many of us in EMCC want to build a business. We want to do mentoring programs, but we're not on your path yet. Right? So
think
that's where my question is.
What I would have liked to done differently business-wise is starting the company with more partners from the beginning. Because I am the business owner and I am the person with the biggest knowledge about mentoring in my company. It would have been really nice to have had some business partners. So if you want to start a company on business, on mentoring and coaching, start with some partners. Not too many, because that can be really difficult too. But have at least 2 or 3 other people around you as your playmates to develop your concepts. I have been working with lots of different people developing my concepts, and also people that I've hired into my company. And it's really, really important to have, I call them playmates, because we have lots of fun when we're developing our concepts and methodology. And you need to have fun running your business.
Konrad, you have a question.
Yes, it was interesting when you said about the 3 types of learning, single and double loop, and then transformative learning, where any learning that changes my assumptions and perceptions of myself and my identity. I wonder how much of the learning takes place at that level. How are we doing on that, in that field?
I think we could do better all the time.
Mhm.
Yes. And I think partly that is because no matter how well prepared we are as mentors and coaches, no matter how well we prepare mentors and coaches for their role, we could challenge our mentees more and support them more in that transformative learning, because it is not comfortable to do transformative learning. There's a lot of frustration. You need to overcome your own internal barriers. And for sure, having a mentor or a coach in that process is great. But I do believe we could be even better.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you challenge people's identity, and that's no easy thing.
You know, when we talk about developing leaders, very often we work with people who are in their first leadership position. And moving from being an individual contributor to being a leader, people think they can stay friends with those who are now their employees instead of their peers. That is a huge difference in understanding who I am. And going through that is also, in a sense, you need to leave something behind that you have valued, because you cannot be friends with your direct employees. You can be friendly, but that's something else. And that changes even more the higher you go in the organization. So I believe we need to help, especially leaders, make that transition. And that is a transformative learning. But for some, it takes a long time, and for some, it doesn't really happen. So they get a lot of different kind of conflicts in their leadership roles.
I actually missed a mentor when I moved to Germany, or in hindsight, I know I should have had it, because I got 2 levels up in the organization, and because I was working all across the Northern Europe, I was responsible for business there.
Yeah.
And when I was asked, did I want to go back to the office in Oslo? I said, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't work. I mean, you can't go back to where you were.
No,
You know,
it's difficult.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you cannot feel the same way as you did before. So when you make that significant transition in your learning, you are in a different place mentally, and it's difficult to remember the exact feelings you had before. So writing a documentation during your learning process is really, really valuable. So you can go back and say, oh, did I really think like that? Did I feel like that? Was this my biggest worries? Now I'm in a completely different place.
Ulrika, you have a hand up.
Thank you so much for a brilliant presentation. Really appreciate it. I was just out of curiosity wondering, what was your biggest challenge in the beginning or obstacle that you needed to?
I think my biggest obstacle was the same as everybody else who starts a company. How do you sell? Because I think we are all in this community passionate about what we do and specialists in our work. but none of us have been trained to be salespeople. And that is probably not what is motivating us to have a business either. So if I would be advising somebody today on whether to start a company, my first advice would be take a sales training course before you even start your company. I have been learning from a lot of different people during my more than 20 years in this company. And you can keep learning also more about how to do sales. And sales have also changed a lot during the last 3 years because of the corona. So any kind of cold canvas and cold selling, forget it. I do believe the best way of selling our services is having a deep knowledge about what we do and a huge passion for what we do and sharing that with the world. But we still need to understand selling, and we need to put priority on it because that is important.
Yeah. And another question was, what was your biggest learning in the beginning? I mean, or do you remember, when you get to that point where you go, whoa?
I think my biggest surprise at the beginning was actually how much people appreciated what I brought to them around mentoring. And how much value you can add, and how they really do appreciate it, because in any kind of selling situation with soft services like we have, it's difficult to create a return on investment, or rather it's difficult to document it. Research show, and when I do return on investment calculations, if you can just keep 2 people 1 year longer in the company through having a mentoring program, that can finance a mentoring program with up to 30 pairs and an external consultant with all the services that comes from there. So it's definitely really valuable if you can make that return on investment. But otherwise, being able to document and validate the value of what we are selling is one of the key points of being great at what we do also, not just knowing how to do it, but explicitly explain the value. Did that answer the question?
Yes, brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing.
How do we get rid of this expectation that mentoring is for free?
We have to go to another country than Sweden, because it's the worst in Sweden. No, it's also a question of which context we move into, because there's a lot of NGOs, lots of associations, trade unions that do mentoring for free within their associations, and the NGOs that are inviting. I mean, in Denmark, we have an interesting initiative for former soldiers that's called Welcome Home, where a person who's passionate about supporting these ex-soldiers coming home from whatever position they've been in Afghanistan or wherever, to make a transition from being a soldier to moving into a job in private or public organization. She has managed to get funding from a lot of different companies and funds, and she invites leaders and employees from companies to volunteer to be mentors, and has a huge number of, I think she has around 200 mentors now in the program, voluntarily doing that. There's no way this kind of initiative will ever be able to fund what we would like to provide. At EMC Denmark, we are now supporting this program for the ex-soldiers on a pro bono basis, and I'm supporting them also on a pro bono basis. If we want to do a business out of mentoring and coaching, we need to move into private organizations or state, government, public organizations that actually have budgets for developing the leaders and the employees. I do know, I do have this impression that in Sweden, there's even more issue around mentors being volunteers. I don't know if we have any Swedish people here who could comment on that.
Ulrika, Anna-Karin.
Jag har ju varit borta från Sverige så länge så jag har ingen idé hur det är nu. Jag kan bara tala för Italien.
Yeah, okay.
Där jag bor.
I do come from Sweden and I live here too, but I'm not too well. I can't speak into it.
This is an impression.
I think you're right from my knowledge.
Yeah.
I think you're right there.
Yeah.
It is an issue, but it's the same thing in Norway.
But for sure, the more we go into the big companies, the more they will have mentoring programs, they will have graduate programs, leadership development programs, and they all talk about having mentoring. So it's a question of helping them realize what they don't know and how they could have an even bigger impact of what they are doing.
Impact and ROI is definitely key.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, we have 3 minutes left of the whole thing. Is there any other questions for Kirsten?
I think I have one more, but I think that maybe is a bigger question. But let me just, because I heard Sten Hildebrandt or read his article, and I also do understand that in our world right now, we need a huge transition in understanding developing human skills.
Yes.
Rather than, because there's a lot of learning of how to do the business or the competencies that is in there, but not the human skills.
Mm.
So do you focus on that when you sell your program?
Yes, that's the short answer. Let me give you a little story. One of the large global companies I'm working with, I first had a contact with almost 20 years ago when I did my research on mentoring. And at that time, this is a huge company focused on the engineering, very, very concrete, very focused people, results-oriented, detail-oriented, the advisors and experts. And when I met them, they were definitely a very engineering company, a very blue company, as I call it. And they did not really have that appreciation for social skills, communication skills, learning skills, because they were the experts and they would go out to the clients and tell the clients, this is the way to do it. I've been following them over the years, and 10 years we became a provider of mentoring to this company. And I can see how the company has evolved with the evolution also in the marketplace, where instead of just being the expert and delivering machines, they have become much more solution providers. They're much more focused on marketing, much more focused on customer relationships, much more focused on co-creating solutions for their clients. So they have become more and more able to value and appreciate the social skills, the communication skills, and also the connections between people inside in the company. So this has been a development journey inside the company. And I do believe that many companies today are on that journey, becoming much more appreciative of social skills, leadership skills, coaching skills, mentoring skills, and looking for developing a learning culture that can really create an innovative organization that is long-term viable and sustainable and has a success. So in that sense, we need to look for companies who are ready, but also help companies become ready and move faster in that journey. And I do believe that's my mission, to help companies move in that journey. And I do believe in EMCC, that's also part of our mission, to share that knowledge and that understanding and help them move a little bit faster, because otherwise they will die.
Thank you. Yeah,
on that note, we have reached the half hour, and I would just close off with a couple of comments. Now, You mentioned learning. It was one of your last words there, and this series, the mentoring series, is about co-creating something. I mean, we want to have that feeling that we can actually do something even on a Nordic level. We are very isolated in each country, and we have so much resources across the Nordic and across Europe for that matter. That we want to share, and we want to have the contact, we want to give the support, and we want to have a forum for developing our ideas. And that is basically what we're trying to do, or that we will try to do with the mentoring series. If we succeed, that depends on whether people actually turn up, whether people want to learn, whether people want to co-create. But anyway, it's very exciting. And I'm very thankful and grateful that you are here today, and I've really enjoyed it.